Welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'll be going over my team selection and transfer plans for game week 24. Kicking off the team in goal, it's Kepa for his home match against Southampton. The Saints have only scored 8 goals away from home in the Premier League so far this season, and at the moment they look one of the most likely teams to be relegated. The goal Emerson scored against Chelsea last week was the first goal they've conceded in 4 league matches, and I fully expect them to avoid conceding in this one. Next up, it's Kieran Trippier for Newcastle's home match versus Liverpool. After a ridiculous run of FPL returns and bonus points spanning from game week 14, Trippier has now blanked in his last 2 games. Newcastle's performances are visibly worse with the absence of the suspended Bruno Guimaraes, so I expect them to improve considerably when he returns in game week 26. It always seems to be a high-scoring encounter between these two sides, but just of late, both Newcastle and Liverpool have struggled to come by goals. Joining Trippier is Gabriel for Arsenal's away trip to Aston Villa. I'm recording this before the Arsenal City match. However, following the weekend, it was a disappointing outcome for the Gunners, who now find themselves just 3 points clear at the top of the table. Gabriel, and the Arsenal defence as a whole, have been a bit of a letdown lately in terms of FPL returns, but they have got a good fixture run all the way up until around game week 30, including a double in game week 25. Finally, in the 3-man defence this week is Luke Shaw for his home game versus Leicester. I made a big mistake last week benching Shaw for Dan Burn on the game week 23 deadline day. Burn lost his clean sheet against Bournemouth, and Shaw went on to somehow score 12 points against Leeds. This week I'll definitely be playing Shaw for his home match. My only concern with him will come in game week 25, when he blanks and I'll have to decide on whether to bench him or to transfer him out. To begin with in midfield this week is Martin Odegaard against Aston Villa. Although Arsenal failed to win last weekend, let's not forget that they came up against a very good side in Brentford, who are unbeaten since the Premier League resumed in December. Aston Villa are a team who have conceded a lot of big chances to their opposition since game week 17, and they looked vulnerable in defence last week against Man City. This game will challenge Arsenal to see how tough their mentality is as league title contenders. Next up, it's of course Marcus Rashford for Man United's home match versus Leicester. Not much needs to be said about Rashford's inclusion here and his form since the World Cup. He scored 12 goals so far in the league this season, and 8 of them have come following the break. He's debatably a good captain option this week, and it is very tempting to go there. The only thing that's deterring me away from making that decision is the fact that the League Cup final is just around the corner, so Rashford might not get the full 90. Joining Rashford is another captain shout this week, and it's Bukayo Saka for our Arsenal triple up versus Aston Villa. Although Arsenal have struggled to break down the opposition in their last couple of matches, Saka has looked by far their most dangerous player. Although the Gunners are yet to play Man City, I expect Saka to have more of an influence in that match than he did at the weekend against Brentford. Villa seem vulnerable down their left side of the pitch, which is where Saka will be looking to exploit. Kevin De Bruyne is a player I've been looking to sell now for about 3 to 4 weeks, but just haven't found the opportunity. He had a good run of fixtures followed by a double this game week, and what doesn't help is the fact that City have got good upcoming fixtures and other players in my team are blanking imminently. De Bruyne just doesn't seem to be as involved in City's final third build-up play as some of their other players, and it's really harming his FPL returns. He's a reluctant hold for me this week, but I'm not sure for how much longer. Finally, Mitoma joins the midfield for Brighton's home match against Fulham. Brighton have been on fire lately, scoring 16 goals since game week 17. Mitoma has been one of the key reasons why they've excelled in the goal scoring department, and I expect that form to continue for the remainder of the season. This will be a really interesting matchup between 2 informed teams who are both eyeing up European spots in the league. I'm really interested to know what your prediction is for this one. Drop a comment down below. To begin with up front, I've gone for Mitrovic away to Brighton. Although Mitrovic has been a frustrating FPL asset to own of late, and Brighton are a difficult opponent, I just can't justify selling him this week, especially as he's on penalties and Fulham have a match in game week 25. Once I've sorted all the blank game week players out in my team, the plan is definitely to move Mitrovic onto another forward. At the moment I'm liking the look of Ivan Toney and João Felix. Last up it's Haaland for City's away game against Forest. It must have been frustrating for FPL managers who captained or even triple captained Haaland last week to see him not take City's penalty and then get subbed off at half time against Aston Villa. If Man City were to beat Arsenal in the week, it will be interesting to see how Pep lines his team up for future league matches, especially with the Champions League on the horizon. In the reverse fixture against Forest earlier in the season, Haaland scored a first half hat-trick, so I'm sure he'll be a popular captain this time round. So making the bench this week it's Ward, Burn, Che Adams and Patterson. I'm benching Burn for Mitrovic because although Liverpool have been fairly underwhelming this season, they always have goal threat and I think Burn might end up with another 2-pointer this week. On the other hand, Mitrovic hasn't returned since game week 19, but Fulham have continued their good form and I think it's only a matter of time before he's on the score sheet again. After hearing that announcement of a double game week for Che Adams, I might as well hold on to him for now. Captaincy is an interesting decision this week because there are arguably 4 or 5 potential players who I could give the armband to. I'm avoiding going for Rashford because of United's upcoming League Cup final, and De Bruyne has been just too inconsistent lately. Closer to the deadline I might end up going with one of the Arsenal midfielders, but I think for now I'll stick the armband on Haaland, just because we've seen what he's capable of doing against teams that are lower down in the table. As for transfer plans, I think the most sensible thing to do is roll the transfer and have 2 free transfers going into the blank game week 25. My main focus will be to switch the defence around a little bit, so that I have at least 3 playing defenders going into that week, which will mean moving on Shaw and Dan Burn. At the moment I'm interested in the likes of Craig Dawson, Tarkowski and Reece James. So that concludes my game week 24 team selection. What are your thoughts on my squad for the upcoming game week? Let me know down below in the comments, and once again guys, thank you so much for watching and I wish you all massive green arrows for the upcoming weekend.